take, I tell this story to my kids because they love it. They're all electrical engineers for the most part. And I'm on the electrical engineering faculty, and I know there's DU professors that are spinning in their grave that I'm on the electrical engineering faculty. Because I took circuits 1 and 2 and went home with my gentleman's D's. But, you know, after you sell a $250 million worth of electronics, I guess you count as being one. Some examples of instruments that I've built are in the big 4 for a chemical industry, which are temperature, pressure, liquid level, and fluid flow, both measurement and control. If you hear about a meltdown in a nuclear reactor in France, you may not see me for a while, because that's my instrument measuring the water level and my actuator controlling the water level. And the reason they used our instruments for this is they both had the control algorithms actually run in the field instruments, so there's just one wire going between the two. It isn't the wire goes from the measuring level, the level measurer, run the wire out to the control room, run the PID loop in the control room, and then run the wires back to the actuator. They're directly connected inside the containment because they figured the biggest single source of failure was going to be one of the wires let go in that control loop. And by doing this, they went from like 2,000 feet of wire with multiple penetrations through the containment to a 20-foot length of wire inside the containment building. So a lot of the stuff I've built is very life critical and property critical. My company was Adaptive Instruments. You probably never heard of it. Most of our instruments were actually sold by the big instrument companies. It was Foxborough, ABB, Honeywell, Dresser, Mason Neilson, all sold it. Some Ashcroft, some other smaller ones. At the end, to the end users, we sold through the Accutech brand. I mean, some of the stuff I designed in '92, you can still buy today in the Omega catalog.
Got to be a good feeling.
You know, it was the first smart temperature tweak. I had the second microprocessor-based 4 to 20 milliamp transmitter in the world. It was a 2-wire device as opposed to a 4-wire device. So Honeywell would come out with the first one for pressure, and we followed up shortly thereafter with the one for temperature. 2008, I got stuck in the financial crisis. I extended myself to the limit on my wireless sensor network, which was winning all the awards, and the sales were coming along nice. And these were sold under our name as well, so that we had a lot of end user sales. And the bank one day called me up and said, we got to have lunch I just had lunch with them in Thanksgiving. My banker called me up and said, we've got to have lunch a week later. I knew that wasn't going to be good news. So we had lunch, and yes, he said the bank was pulling the note. And so I needed to come up with $1 million in short order, and I couldn't do it. So I sold the company. Doing it again today with a company called Femtoscale. We've raised $2 million in the last 2 years of SBIR money. It's all grant money. It's the best kind. You get addicted to free money. I now have I've applied for 4 SBIR grants. I've gotten all 4. I'm told by other investors in the Denver Boulder area that qualifies me to be officially a SBIR crack whore. And I'm very serious about, you know, do I want to take much more SBIR money before I raise a private round? Because the history of these companies that get lots of SBIR money is not good. And the investors know it. So I think I just closed on my last funding on Monday. Cash came in, so I've got 2 years of runway in front of me. So probably within the next year, I need to raise my private money, and then in addition, I still have more stuff to apply for with SBIR. And if I'm 4 for 4 on grants, I think I owe it to myself to try again.
Do you write your own grants, or?
I joined up with a professor at DU who's got lots of practice writing the grants. He's raised $10 million in grant money over the last 10 years or so. Excuse me, $4 million in the last 10 years, outside of the SBIR money. So he's got a pretty good track record. And part of it is you need to almost sit on one of the committees at the grant association. So he's on a couple NSF committees that decide who gets awarded the grants. And that way you get to find out what plays with the committee and what doesn't play with the committee, what works and how to read your evaluation. What did you do right when you applied? What did you do wrong? And I never would have accomplished this myself. I mean, we turned in 80-page grant proposals that he would put together in a week, and if you asked me to write 80 pages, I'd be 3 months and it'd be awful. You know, I would write pieces of it on the business side, but from the technical side, I let him write all of it. What we do now is a femto scale. We have a femtogram mass balance. It can weigh 14 zeros and a 1 gram. So it's a whole lot of nothing we can measure. The hard part isn't weighing it. We can do this for about $5. We use a nano sensor. The hard part is how do I put something on the scale? And so what we're trying to do with it is turn it into sensors and various sensor types. So we've got 2 sensor types that we're working on now. One is a moisture sensor. You just chill it and the water will condense out of the air, measure the temperature. It's the same as a mirror dew pointer. And we're working on a particle detector, a personal particle detector that will be this size, and you'll just stick it in your pocket like this and walk around. And NIOSH is just released the rule this week saying that it will be a requirement for all coal miners and anybody exposed to silica dust. There's only one approved vendor out there right now, and they're 8-pound box that fits on your hip. So we're looking to, hopefully that'll come across and mature, and then we've got some other ones. I've been a professor for the last 3 years. Talked about that already. Through all of those experiences, I had a very entrepreneur-centric view of the world, an inventor-centric view of the world. But after I had sold my company, I'm sitting on this cash, and cash is not earning very much these days. So I started to think to myself, well, I'll go look at how the investors do it, and I joined one of the local investors groups, and started to meet investors all over the place. I realized that my entrepreneur-centric view was completely at odds with the investor view. And even though I've been teaching entrepreneurship for 2 years, I realized that I had the textbook view, which wasn't the real view of what do the investors really want. So it's different, and they don't even tell you what they really want. If you listen to what they say, you're going to be led astray too. So I've been learning this because I will be pitching my own company. I'm still 6 months away probably to a little bit longer to pitching. And now that I've been investing and I know many of the angel investors in town, I will pitch it entirely different than I would have done otherwise. Through the process I've gone through with the local group, I've personally looked at over 200 companies now in the last 18 months. I'll tell you that if I see any more of their PowerPoint pitches, my eyes will just bleed. I see a couple, I see 2 to 4 a week. I teach pitching. I have 14 students. They're going to be pitching me in the next few weeks for their grade. one of the things I do is you always have to pitch to your audience. You really need to know your audience to pitch successfully. So I figure the seniors are all, have been through 4 years of school with their fellow seniors. So I won't grade their pitches. I will have the class rank everybody from first to last. And it's not, you get an A, you get a B, no, it's you were number one, and you were number two, all the way down to you were last, you were worst. And that's how I do it when I'm looking at companies. I'm gonna rank them that way, because why not? And what else is there to do? So I try to teach the class, make it very realistic to them. It's part of when, trying to prepare for this, I wasn't sure where my audience would be. So please, let's turn this into a dialogue. Ask me questions when we get there.
The first one, I mean,
Yeah.
are you as an angel investor in a lot of entrepreneurial experience and a strong technical background, are you kind of a unique angel, or, I mean, are a lot of angels just more or less financial people?
Most of them are financial people, but they have been in a technical business.
But they're not necessarily
They're not,
experienced entrepreneurs.
no, so I often get called in to do the technical due diligence as opposed to the financial due diligence. So I've gone and evaluated, I've gone and visited over 10 companies in the last 6 months to look at their tech. And so in any organization, you have your thought leaders, and then you have your followers, and then you have people that maybe shouldn't be there in the first place. I don't know how to put this. And we have very much got a group of investor financial thought leaders. And so one of their, I'll drop names, one of them's named Steve Warnicki. And if Steve tells me to write him a check, I write him a check. I barely ask how big. Okay, he's the financial guy. Now, but how did I get to know him? I've gone and done due diligence on about 6 different companies with Steve and watched how he took my technical evaluation and turned it into a negotiation. Most of the times the negotiation has failed. The entrepreneur has had a estimate of their value that has been much too high compared to reality and where they are. And there are tricks you can play to try to assuage, let the entrepreneur think that he has got that value without really rubbing his nose in it, that he doesn't have that value. But you do that by changing terms on the term sheet. You might change the liquidation preference is one that Steve loves to use. I've watched him promise the entrepreneur $750,000, you can have it next week if you take these terms. I've seen the entrepreneur turn the terms down, say no, they're not good enough, we're gonna take this thing national, and I've watched those people not get financed. And 2 months later, given up.
So you could give them like a higher valuation, but more favorable conditions to invest in.
Yeah, so we see all the time, I mean, it happens all the time, is people come in with unrealistic expectations on their valuation. And you can make up for that. You can leave the headline number, the top line number there, but I need to take risk off the table. Well, how do I take risk off the table? The best way for the investor, well, I'll increase my liquidation preference. Normal terms are like 1x on that.
Could you go into liquidation preference?
Liquidation preference. So liquidation, they're all legal terms. Liquidation means sales of a company. Doesn't mean you went bankrupt. It means you sold the company. Liquidation preference says, I have preferred stock. Preferred stock gets money ahead of common stock.
That's okay.
So the liquidation preference, if it's 1x, well, I get my money back first. Then the money gets distributed. A liquidation preference of 2x, I get twice my money back. And then it gets distributed to the stockholders. Well, 3x is not an uncommon term. It's kind of not one as a entrepreneur that you necessarily want to agree to, but you know, the golden rule is fully in play here. The guy with the gold is making the rules.
Do you also, are you also able to dictate in advance what the criteria is for liquidation? In other words, the owner doesn't want to liquidate, but you say, hey, my money's getting really,
If you can have term sheets that are a paragraph long and are couched in such VC jargon that you won't have any idea what they mean. If you see the words full ratchet, what's a full ratchet? All I can tell you is run away. Okay?
Write that down.
Yeah. Because what it means is if there's a down round, if there's any dilution, the original stockholder, the preferred stockholder, the original investor isn't being diluted. All the dilution is coming out of you, the entrepreneur. So that's another way for you to take this ridiculously high value and reduce it to something that's not very high by saying, oh, I get a full ratchet. I've taken all my negative risk off the table from the next round where it's going to get valued correctly. And it's all been put on you, the entrepreneur. So there are lots of ways to adjust this because there are lots of risk terms that allow you to adjust the value up or down, even though the headline number may stay at the top. So
Silicon Flatirons does a really good seminar once in a while on term sheets.
okay. Yeah.
And the Rockies venture too, I mean.
Yeah.
okay.
You know, I have 40 hours in class to go through all this stuff, and we're going to go really quick through this.
That's okay, I didn't mean to throw you
But
off
term
track.
sheets is a whole 2 hours for me.
Okay.
In fact, I did term sheets last night. So anyways, first thing I learned is, and the first thing I think the most important thing for me to get across, if I'm going to get one point across tonight, what the investors tell you they're looking at, they aren't. Okay, and that does, I don't care if that's venture capitalists or angel investors. The first thing they're looking for is there a match between your offering and their investment profile? That's the very first thing they're looking at. Long before they look at anything else, they're looking at, is this the kind of thing I normally invest in? There are lots of different kinds of deals out there. And so a VC may say, I make initial rounds of $3 million investment. It's not worth my time to even go down to $2.5 million. It's going to cost me too much to even do it. So if I've got I'm looking to raise 750, and I'm pitching this VC who is only going to take a $3 million round. He's probably, you might get the right answer from him, but he's probably just going to be nice to you and string you along and tell you what you need to do, when in fact you have no chance of ever getting investment from this person. So the first thing you need to do, and the same thing, it's the first thing I do, I've seen 200 deals in the last 18 months. I have to qualify, is this deal in the profile of the things that I do? And if it isn't, I'm not interested. And so if I'm going to look at 200 deals, I don't have enough time to give any depth of discussion. The first thing I want to do is this in my profile or not? Be more interested or walk away.
How do you find people who are in your area who have that profile?
Well, the other piece, I teach this, entrepreneurship is a social sport. I have talked through the local meetings of like the RVC, I've talked to hundreds of people. I've talked to 100 individual investors. I ask them, everybody's very open. You don't have to, well, what kind of companies are you interested in, or what's your size of investment, or anything. It's the first thing you want to ask. So in fact, if you're talking to somebody and you're looking for money and you find out they're an investor, you shouldn't immediately launch into your pitch of what your company is. You should launch into, oh, you're an investor. What kind of things do you invest in? What size deal is in your sweet spot? Qualify your lead. I mean, it's just selling. Qualify your lead before you waste all your time and their time both. Because they aren't going to like you if you waste their time, and you aren't going to like them if they're wasting your time. And there's nothing negative about this. You know, I was talking to a group at an RVC meeting. It was one of these, it was on early company valuations, where we have a class on early company valuations. And there was a family-owned investment company there. And I've learned enough now, that was my first question to them. And inside of 30 seconds, it came out, no, we would never be interested in the kind of company I was getting ready to pitch to them. So just skip that part. Go right to, is this the right kind of deal for you? Don't even do that. Ask them what their deal is.
What drives those decisions for them? I mean, is it just general interest? Is it?
So if I'm a VC, I've raised a $100 million fund, I have one kind of a profile. If I've raised $1 billion fund, I've got an entirely different profile. So if I've raised $1 billion, I need to put $5 million to $50 million chunks to work. If I've raised a $100 million fund, I need to put $2 million chunks to work. If I've raised a $10 or $20 million fund, I've got to put together $250,000 to $750,000 chunks. If you're talking to the local angels, we tend to deal in $25,000 chunks, because what we're trying to do is to minimize our investment in any one basket, to have a broad reach, because we know a bunch of them are going to fail. So 25 has been the minimum investment. Think about that. If you're looking to raise 750, that's a lot of people you've got to talk into it. Well, you're going to find a couple that are, there's a few angels out there that are much higher numbers. But the average angel you talk to is going to be a 25K number. And if you can find one for 100 or 2, that's great.
And what about the type of projects?
Well, then that's the other piece. So it's the two things. It's the size, and then, well, it's more than just the size. There's the amount of money you need. That's one thing. Then there's the amount of money they need. How much are they going to make off of your money? What's their timeline? Some people want to look for a 3-year exit. I've got some money and I'm looking for an exit in 3 years. This company's going to be sold in 3 years. You're offering me a 7-year deal, I'm not interested. There's other guys that are saying 7 years is fine. Now, how does that work? When the VC does a fund, it's a 10-year fund. So if he's 3 years into his fund, he's already down to 7 years left. If he's 5 years into his fund, he's got 5 years left before the money has to be returned. So if you're talking to a VC who's got a 10-year fund and he's 5 years into it, you better have a less than 5-year deal, or he's not interested. So there's that. Then there's also tech, because we have to do due diligence on this. Are you really going to sell what you say you're going to sell? So I listen to these, one of the ones it's surprising, I got my master's in computer science. I stay entirely away from anything web or cloud. I don't understand the valuations at all. And so I'm not in that space. I've never done that work. I don't know it. So I just stay away from it. I don't go there. Maybe if we have then there's a trend now to have a group put together, an LLC, where investors can get in smaller amounts. I'm much more likely to take a $5,000 gamble on something I don't understand than to put my $25,000 in, because I'm only making 4 of those a year. Yeah.
Where do we go to actually find legit angel investors? Because I think if you search and do like a Google search for angel, I mean, all kinds of random stuff pops up. Is there like a true network that we can?
Absolutely. There's 2 that I belong to. Belong to the Impact Angel Group in Boulder, which is got yet another switch on how they do things. They're looking, the Impact Angel Group, they're looking for something that has a social impact. They're less concerned with the dollar value return, more concerned with the impact of the return. That's a Boulder group and tends to be made of Boulder people.
Is Brad Feld a part of that one?
No, he isn't. Brad's got his own, the Foundry Group, I guess it is.
Yeah, that's right, the Foundry. Right.
And you know, I've met Brad, I've talked to Brad. I kinda get how he does his evaluation. I couldn't bring myself to do that way at all. Brad will walk up to the founders and decide in 15 minutes whether they're gonna get a little check or not. And it's gotta be a web startup. And he's betting entirely on the team. He doesn't care about the idea. He doesn't, you know, it's entirely, is this team gonna able to pull something off?
So that's like not much due diligence investigation.
We go into the due diligence and, you know, that's another piece of it. I've seen all kinds of due diligence done from minimal to maximal. I've done maximal myself on one company I invested in where I put in a man-year of due diligence. Turned out to be a scam.
Really?
I was
Ouch.
taken.
Really?
After, I tell you, I don't care how much due diligence you do, it isn't enough. You're gambling. So, what do? Brad says 15 minutes, that's enough.
That's interesting, because if you don't have the two components, I can see a great team with a poor product. Well, if you got a poor product, despite the great team,
Right, and
you're not gonna gain much traction.
He's gonna be on the board of this great team, him or one of his
Mm-hmm.
assistants, and they're gonna make them morph into a great product. Okay, that's
Okay.
his approach.
Okay.
Whatever you're doing today, maybe it isn't perfect, let's talk about that, but I like your team. So let's, and if you're the money guy, and the team's going this way, and you say to the team, I'd rather you went that way, what are you gonna do? Probably go that way. So, but due diligence is a giant problem. I'll get to that in a little bit more depth here in a minute. The other group is the RVC, Rockies Venture Club. That is more Denver-centric, although there's a lot of members in Boulder, and we have meetings in both Boulder and Denver. If you're talking to a Denver angel, you can almost count on them being more financially involved than the Boulderites. Boulders are gonna be more socially concerned. I know I'm stereotyping in a big way here, but I'm sorry, they self-selected by moving there. And so I've gone to the RVC meetings with the investor meetings, both in Denver and in Boulder, and we talk about entirely different things in the Denver meeting than we do in the Boulder meeting.
Which way do you tend to go?
Personally?
Yeah.
I could care less about
Okay.
the impact. The impact is to my wallet. I mean, you know,
Traditional.
I'm gonna evaluate entirely monetarily. If it does something good, that's great, I love it, but that's just like a bonus, it's not a reason to invest in them. But then, some of those investors in Boulder have a lot more money, so they can afford to be more that way. Yeah, well, more angel impact-y, because it's up to the, so you're gonna find angels from all kinds of backgrounds, with all kinds of walks of life, with all kinds of interests and ways they do things.
Have you seen these online dating services like Angel List and those sorts of things?
Yeah.
Do they work or worth pursuing?
They do, but I don't know that much about it. You know, a Kickstarter is good if you've really got a product ready to go, but if you don't have a product, then a Kickstarter does you no good. I've talked to people who've done Kickstarters. It cost them a lot of money to get onto Kickstarter, and they got no traction. Well, it might not have been a bad thing to do, because Kickstarter gives you a pretty good experience in marketing what you're trying to sell, and you find out if it's gonna work or not. So there are ideas that are perfect for Kickstarter. AngelList tends to be very much more of the web startup-y kind of things, maybe some electronics, but other kinds of startups don't seem to get on there. I get their emails, I'm on the list, I get the emails, but
Do you have much familiarity with the Gust platform?
we're starting to use Gust in the RVC, but
Right.
we're just turning it, they've already just revamped Gust completely, and I haven't learned it yet,
Oh,
so.
What is Gust?
it's another site for startups to
I see.
position themselves with the investment community.
And an organization like RVC is now making connections to the other regional angel groups. So we've just done several deals that have been syndicated, where one of the groups was the lead investor. In this case, RVC had the lead investor, and the New York Angels came in to fund the rest of it. Because it's a good way to get the, so back to due diligence, one of the big problems on this is getting the due diligence done. Most of us who are angels have a job, we're already fully booked. Finding the time to do the due diligence is not easy. I've seen a number of promising deals go nowhere because the due diligence work was not prepared, the material was not prepared by the investor. And there was nobody who was gonna herd cats or pull it out of them or do any of that stuff. There's a certain momentum to making a deal. You pitch the angels, and if you don't have everything they're looking for right away, you lose that momentum. And if you lose that momentum, lots of times minds will change. They'll go from oh, I'm really hot about this, and let me write a check, to, oh, I've had second thoughts and I'm not that interested. So you really need to have everything ready to roll so your momentum can carry you. And that means having a due diligence package completely, fully ready. Now, I've been recommending that to everybody who pitches to the RVC that I talk to at the RVC. It's now gotten to the point where both Sarah and Peter have seen that this is true as well. So the director and assistant director of the RVC are saying this to anybody who goes to the pitch camp. You need to have your due diligence material ready now.
So this would be like something put together by an impartial third party?
No,
So it can be done internally?
Yeah, absolutely. You just need to pull together, and you can go to the RVC, they'll give you a list of all the due diligence material you need. It's extensive. There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, we've seen deals fall apart when everything looked perfect, and then we did a background check on the principal. And, well, you know, these last two fraud convictions kind of made it not very possible. So, you know, the due diligence and having it all ready, you need to make it, the angel's so busy, you need to make it as easy as possible for the angel to be able to write the check.
Would traditionally the angel do that on their nickel, or would the company be
So traditionally the lead investor would be the one responsible for doing the better due diligence job. We have various people who do lead investing. I've done lead investing. I've done due diligence. You don't want me for your due diligence person because I'm too easy.
Take that back, maybe we do want you.
No, you don't, because the angels who take the time, a lot of these people are semi-retired financial types, and when they do decide to pick on it, they really know how. And it doesn't take them very long to go through your due diligence package and find the holes. And so what I'm talking about here is to have all the information in a package available for review by the angel who's doing the due diligence, rather than have the angel calling you and say, where's your pro forma? I need your marketing information, and a lot of phone calls and back and forth and time lost trying to get that information. That's all a big negative.
Boy, I would think anybody even approaching somebody like RVC would have that together. Seriously.
No, we would say of the companies, of the 200 I've looked at, maybe 5% had reasonable due diligence packages ready.
So above and beyond, say, a business plan, pro forma,
business
background.
plan, not so much. Business plans are so fictional that they've more fallen out of favor.
Mm-hmm.
What I really want to see, and I'm called the TAM, Peter Adams, who's the director of the RVC last month, called me the TAM Nazi because I gave him the story of total addressable market. I've got this story, I tell it a lot. back in 2000, when everything was going nutty, I had built an instrument for a company when they had only raised $6 million of VC money. It was an optical channel monitor, so it was on going on fiber optics to see what the various wavelengths look like on a dense wavelength division multiplex unit. And it worked. You know, we did our job. I put 3 people at the thing. We used our standard techniques. It worked great. But at that time, everything was going nutty in the financial world. So instead of being a $6 million raise, they went out and raised $170 million. So when they had raised the original deal was this device was going to sell for 10 grand, and 3 grand of that belonged to me because I built the electronics.
Based on your law royalty?
That was that we negotiated the deal. We'll design and build the electronics for you. Our sell price is $3,000. They raised 170 million. They decided, the VCs that had the money, and said, you can't be dependent on this little company. You're going to be a giant company. You need to develop it yourself. So they set up a clean room, and they hired 30 engineers, and they brought them in, and a year later, they had nothing. They had nothing. They were still selling ours, and they had spent all this money and had nothing. So they decided they'd do it the old-fashioned way. They would make me an offer I couldn't refuse. Well, I had partners at the time, and they could care less about my company or my partners, because it was me who was doing the technical work. So they came and they called me in, and I had to fight with my partners and hire a lawyer just so I could be able to go talk to these people. I had to get an employment lawyer to say I wasn't violating my employment contract. And I went and I founded the company. So I went and talked to them, and they offered me a job to build this product yet again and do other things. And they still had some money left in the employee stock pool, so they said, we'll give you a % of the company. Well, the company's raised 170 million, and Goldman Sachs had them valued at $6 billion based on comparable deals, other sales that were going on. And I said, this is this is a stupid number. So they expected, when they offered me $60 million to join the company, that I would just say yes. Well, I think most people would think that. I said, no, I got to think about this, and I'll see you next Wednesday. So I went home for the weekend, and I decided I had to figure out, is this real? What is this? So they were claiming they were going to sell 250,000 optical channel monitors a year at $10,000 each. So, okay, that's the big mystery. Can they sell 250,000? Yeah, I knew we could make it for 10 grand. I knew all the other numbers. The only number that was any mystery to me was, can you sell 250,000? So I started pulling out my engineer's hat and said, well, how would I analyze this? Well, if I gave everybody in the country 10 megabits per second on a fiber optic link 24/7, how many fiber optic wires would I need inside the country? I came up with a number 330, which said to me the total addressable market is 250 to 2,500 pieces. Not 250,000 a year. I mean 250 a year, with them being replaced every 10 years to make 2,500 total. So I went back and I told them no. You should have seen the faces in the boardroom when somebody turns down a $60 million job offer. But 10 years went by, and yes, they turned the lights out and were taken over by another company who wanted to use their tools for a chemical analysis system, and the 4 guys that were left got to keep their jobs. They got nothing, and there was no market. So.
Were you at personal risk if you had taken that $60 million job?
Oh yeah, it would have been stock options, so it would have been a standard 1-year cliff, 4-year vesting, lockup. Okay, the vesting would have been accelerated on a sale of the company. There still would have been a lockup. I looked at the stock market. These numbers are so stupid, and there's no way there's going to be a sale at this price
So many years
And
from now,
the clock is, and it was already, the market was already starting to do this when they were talking to me. And sure enough, the market crashed inside of 6 months. It was obvious that it was a total bubble of the most ridiculous kind. And so that's taking my own personal experience, total addressable market, on a deal that was offered to me. There was no total addressable market. Yes, I am the total addressable market Nazi. So the biggest number I'm gonna look at in the due diligence is, can you make your sales numbers?
Is there a market for those sales numbers? Mhm.
Yeah.
And based on what basis are you?
On what basis, how are you doing the
Right.
evaluation? I'll go back to first principles. I did one last week. I reported on one that I visited the week before for the RVC, where they had their financials. They were showing 5 years to 50 million sales and all this stuff. And they were gonna sell instruments to the fracking industry, and I went and looked at it, and I came back with the total market being 800 pieces if everything went perfect, for a $7,000 piece. There's no way they were gonna make their financials. So, I mean, I don't think they were gonna sell one to get right down to it, but, yeah, that's the number. So when I'm doing my due diligence, I'm gonna count on you sort of making your costs. I'm gonna count on you sort of, the things that are in your control, you're gonna be able to control. I'm not gonna worry about that too much. I'm gonna worry about the things that are completely out of your control. How much are you really gonna sell?
If you're looking at a consumer product and it's going to be competing with something that's already out there, how do you get the information to get your total market share?
For me, I don't know how, because I've never worked in the consumer market. I've always been in the industrial business, so immediately if somebody says they've got a consumer product, I'd probably say you don't fit my profile, and I walk on, because I don't know how to do that analysis. You know, the kind of way I did it, like I did for the fiber optics thing, is, well, you know, what is the comp? How many are being sold today in this marketplace? If you're 30% better than the competitor, will you sell any? I generally say, I used to say, probably. Today, I'd say probably not.
How do
Probably
you get
looking
the
for a
information
50%.
about what the competitor is selling though, how many they're selling?
Oh, it's not that hard, but it can be difficult to find out. You know, you've got to talk to a lot of people. You need to, in the consumer space, again, I don't know those people that I would talk to. In the instrument space, I've been a CEO of an instrument company. I know all these guys. I just call them up and ask a buddy, how many are these people selling, and I'll get an answer. And so that's why I stay in that space and I analyze that space. There are equivalent guys for consumer materials. I don't know any in particular, because the bigger problem with the consumer stuff is, how do you get shelf space? Getting shelf space is your big problem. And I know nothing about getting shelf space whatsoever and how to go about that, and that's very much a who do you know game.
I would recommend you get to the small business chamber, because they help me. I have a consumer invention, and they help me a lot with the skills to search that kind of stuff.
So I'm sorry I don't have more for you on that one, but I'm sure there are ways to do it. There always are.
Yeah, that's what I keep running into, is lack of information.
Yeah, and I've had to master my Google foo to the point where I can find financials on obscure companies that you would think you aren't getting any financial information on. And you know, I was looking at this company, MSP Corp, to be a strategic partner of mine, and sure enough, I was able to get their rough financials off the web, find out who the principals were, how long they've been in business, all that kind of stuff.
Financials
So,
I can get, the actual product sales numbers.
now, those that tend to be more closely held, but if you talk to the buyer at one of the local stores, how many are you selling? And then, you know, then you say, well, there's 4,000 of these big box stores, and this one has this annual, and you kind of back into it. And if you can get it right within a zero, that's probably pretty good.
I know if you went to the store manager
Yep.
and asked the manager himself, he can tell you.
Yeah.
A lot of them will provide that information
Sure.
for you, no problem.
Sure, you need to go to, you know,
Yeah.
start local, don't go national, start local.
Get in
And then you've tracked down who knows who in that space, who knows the buyers, because the buyers have all that information, and they all talk to each other. It's just, can you find the right connection to that buyer?
I always noticed Dun & Bradstreet is a good
Yeah.
source too. Excellent.
So there's these guys I talked to in Boulder that have the phone number of the head of Walmart's customer engagement group. If you needed Walmart numbers, the first thing I would try personally is, since I know these guys, I would go to them and say, is there any way to find out somebody inside of Walmart? And you know, you gotta make a connection to a connection to a connection. What we haven't talked about, and what we need to talk about a lot, is the exit. Exit. Really, the next thing that people are looking at after we've qualified, do you match up? How big is the exit means a lot. And there's a magic number in there, which is somewhere between 20 and $50 million in exit price. Probably closer to 50. Because who you're being sold to makes a big difference on what you're worth. I'm being sold to a public company. They're gonna get public multiples on my EBIT, my earnings. If I'm selling to a financial company, they're gonna look to pay 4 times my EBIT. If I'm selling to a public company, they may go 15 times my EBIT. Your growth also matters a lot. If it's a public company, and these funny sales you see with these ridiculously high numbers are based on the future growth that this company is going to have in the arms of the new parent, which is exactly what happened with my wireless instruments. Sales tripled in 2 years when Schneider Electric was in control of my company, because they had the sales outlets. So what was it worth to them? It was worth to them a lot more than it was to a financial buyer who would have not changed the sales outlet at all. And so the choice of a strategic buyer versus a financial buyer, the choice of a public company versus a private company, those 4 choices can vary the amount of money you get on your earnout by a factor of between about 5, maybe a little more.
Do they always expect you to sell out every angel or?
100%.
Why is that?
Because it's the only way for me to get my money back. I'm giving you my money, I want it back. I'm expecting you to have it for 5 years, but it'll probably end up being 7, we know that. And then I need my money back. It's that simple.
What's the recourse if you don't get your money back in that 7th year? Is that all about writing the terms and what happens?
You can
at the
write
end?
those terms on the sale of the company, but we will have talked to the team in depth about what your intentions are. And if we've gotten any hint of a wobble even, that you aren't selling the company in 5 to 7 years, we're not investing.
Even if you get your money back, like I pay you your money back. with
No,
the-
no, I own the company. The highest price I can get for that company is the money I want back. Period. There is no alternative here. You can find family and friends to invest in something else, but none of the angels are gonna talk to you.
Yeah, you have to be thinking
Could it
acquisition
actually
exit.
No,
be a larger investment round?
No, no, it's always a sale. And I listen to this all the time about people. I did it myself, thinking I could bring in an investor and cash out a little bit and bring in some, it never happened.
So new investors never want to.
Never.
Old investors.
Exactly, new investors never want to pay off old investors. And frankly, there is no chance. Because the next thing we're gonna do after we look at the total addressable market, we're also gonna look at the team, and we're gonna make sure the team is totally committed to getting maximum dollars for us, the investor, in 5 to 7 years. And if they aren't, we walk.
how does any business ever go beyond 5 or 7 years then? It's totally ridiculous. Everybody has to sell. There's no future
You
for anybody.
have to raise, you bootstrap the money, you don't take the outside investors' money in the first place. You have to find the money somewhere
I
else.
guess it's a control issue, because if the angel comes in, they're
I'm not talking
gonna
about
own-
control, I'm talking about existence.
But
We're
I
talking
mean,
about
that- but
100%
you-
don't exist after 7
It's
years.
the ownership that sets the existence. So if the angel comes in, they own a chunk, they're gonna dictate the direction of the company. If you wanna keep more control, then you don't accept outside money and bootstrap. Right?
Company
Bootstrap.
may
But very
continue
few
to
companies
exist
can
as
actually
well.
afford
I
to
had
do
my
that.
company 25 years. I started out with 2 quarters in my pocket.
Hmm.
I bootstrapped it the entire way. That's how I managed to do that. My new company, I'm looking to raise $750,000 here, $500,000. I'm not a youngster anymore. I don't have any trouble selling in 5 years because I'll be too tired. But that's your choice. If you're bringing in outside investors and you're intending to not sell ever, so they can never get their money back at its highest valuation, because at some lower valuation, why should I do this? I want it at the highest valuation. And the only way I can guarantee I'm going to get it at the highest valuation is in a competitive bidding process.
Investors generally get 1 out of 10 deals that make money for them too.
No,
No?
no.
More than that?
The real numbers are 28% annual return on their average, on the total investment
28?
for angel investors. Okay, now, so what are we looking for? Let's throw the other hard number out there. I want 10 times my money back in 5 years. Maybe I want 30 times. If your deal isn't gonna produce that, we're not investing. Why? Because of just what you said, is how many are gonna go bad? So if I take according to the current statistics, if we look at angel invested companies, 3 are gonna return 0. Another 3 are gonna maybe get your money back, but no gain, just you might get your money back. Another 3 after that are gonna be pretty good winners, give you 5 to 10 times back. And then there's that one outsider that gives you the 100 times back. And when you put that all together, you need to come up to about 28% as an annual return. 28% annual return, rule of 72, you gotta double every 2 years. But that's on the average. And you aren't going to be the average. You're either gonna be above the average or dead. So you need to be looking at whatever we're doing is gonna give us a 70% type return as a minimum, and the number's been climbing lately. And so I'm seeing people that are coming in with valuations where they're promising 10 times back and they're not getting any financing.
You're not getting any what?
Not getting any financing.
Oh,
10x return, it's too rich. It's too much risk.
That seems like VC level expectation.
It is.
Yep.
It's no difference.
Yep. No, I was gonna say, over the past probably 15 years has been more of a.
VC money has been cut in half
Mhm.
in just the last 5 years. Angel money has stepped up quite a bit and has basically replaced the VC money.
Mhm.
So the difference is, instead of getting a VC, you're getting an angel with the same expectations. Their statistics on VCs are in, the big funds, the billion-dollar funds have lost money for the last 10 years. Anybody who's invested in them since the internet bubble has lost money. They have not gotten all their money back. The mid-size funds, the $100 million funds, have actually had a much better rate of return. But in fact, the angels have done best of all and had the highest rate of return.
Can you differentiate just very quickly venture capitalist and angel investor for us who don't learn the term?
Okay, so a professional investor, as a venture capitalist, is usually somebody in, I'll indulge in gross stereotypes here, a yachtsman in Boston or San Francisco, who really doesn't want to work that hard and has really good reputation of having made somebody a lot of money somewhere, and has really good connections to people with big dollars. So they will go to they will raise their fund. Now, what a fund is just a single one-time legal entity. They'll raise multiple funds over the course of that venture capitalist career, usually on a yearly basis, every 2 years, something like that. So they'll go out to everybody and raise money, and they're actually better at raising money than they are maybe at employing money. And they go out and they get the money from, used to be that the large institutions gave no money to venture capitalists. Then the large institutions, everybody, the VCs were making so much money in the mid-90s that all the institutional investors said, we need to get a part of that. And that's when the venture capital money increased a lot. And there was way too much money chasing not good enough deals. So they lost their money. So now the institutional investors, like the Public Employees Union pension fund in California, used to have a 2.5% target. 2.5% of their total money was going to be invested in VCs. I think it's down to 0 now. So all of these large institutional sources of money have largely exited the VC investment arena as being too risky. They aren't getting their money back. So now it's raised more from private individuals. And also, since there's less of it, the total numbers right now are about 25, the peak was about $110, $125 billion a year in venture capital money. It's down to about $50 billion a year now, where half of that is venture capital companies and half is angels.
And so the venture capital investors, like a limited partner in the fund, they just invest and no more involvement, right? They just wait their return, and
So
the fund has a manager.
yeah, the fund hires the manager, and the investor has no say in anything. I mean, they've written a check, and they're expecting to get a return on their money, but their money's gone for 10 years. Now, the reason the money gets employed earlier rather than later is the VCs get a 2% per year management fee for money that's invested. So if they invest $100 million, they get a $2 million management fee whether you make money or not. Well, yachting's expensive. You need those management fees.
I looked at a couple of those term sheets and
Yeah.
I'm like, why would anybody do this deal?
So they're 2 and 20s. They're 2% a year for the money under management, and they're 20% of the profits belong to the guys who run the fund. Wow. And those are standard numbers, standard everywhere across the industry.
Let's say that I have some company, I'm making some widgets, I got, say, 3 guys working, 1 guy in production, 2 engineers, I got a part-time salesperson out there knocking on doors, and I'm selling a few a year, I'm doing, I don't know, $5 million a year or something, and I wanna take a jump. What are the kinds of jumps that angel investors want to support? In other words, I say, well, if I could grow
Sure,
this thing enough, it would be attractive to Motorola.
Let's just do the math.
Okay.
Simple math. You need $1 million of investment. I'm going to need 10 million with an upside kicker, but the books have to at least say 10 million back in 5 years. So in that 5 years, you've got to sell the company for 30 million. If you're going to give up a third of the company, it's got to be a $30 million sale. To get a $30 million sale, I'm probably a little too small to attract the public company. And in fact, when I sold my company, I talked to Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric was very interested in my product, would have loved to acquire my company, but I was too small and didn't fit their parameters, and they didn't acquire me. What happened? There was an Australian company that was putting together companies my size to try to build a bigger company to then be acquired. So Schneider Electric ended up owning me in a year and a half, because they put together 6 companies and all of a sudden had a $200 million deal as opposed to a tiny deal. And that was something that was big enough for the public company to be involved in. And the numbers I got from Schneider, and this is now 7, 8 years ago, was they need a $50 to $60 million deal before they're even looking at it. Okay? So if you're 30 million, you're probably too small for the big public companies, because it's just gonna cost them too much to buy you and assimilate you and do all the paperwork and everything else. It's gonna be 3 million or 6 million to do the acquisition, whether you're 30 million or you're 300 million. The acquisition costs are too high as a ratio. So you really need to be in that 60, 70 million to get that bigger number. So let's look at the profit you need to do that. If you're gonna be sold to a financial acquirer for $30 million, you're gonna need to be having annual profits on the order of $4 to $8 million. Because they're gonna be giving you a 4 to 8 times EBIT on the sale of the company. But if it's a public company buying you, they'll give you a 15 to 20 times, depending on if it's a real strategic acquisition. Because they're averaging 15 times in the stock market anyway, so your profit's fully accretive. Plus they figure there'll be efficiencies. I don't know why they figure there'll be efficiencies, because all of the mergers I've seen never had a one. But they figure there'll be efficiencies, so they'll add in some funny number for the extra profit they're going to get due to the acquisition, and then they'll say times 10, times 15. So there's a big hurdle there. If you can get to that size where the public company is going to acquire you, you make a lot more money for the same amount of sales and profit than if you're at the lower one. But the best way to do it is to just work it backwards. The investor needs this much money, and then I've got to be this size to this kind of acquirer, and that's what we're going to look at when we're investing in you. After I do the total addressable market, the very next thing is, okay, now what's the exit look like? And do I believe these exit numbers, because they're all over the place, and most of the time today I'm seeing people say, based on comparables, we're going to get 2x sales, or 3x sales, or 8x sales, and that's a stupid number. I won't use that number at all. I want to do a price earnings growth ratio type number, where I look at the growth rate.
How can anybody forecast 5 years down the road with any?
You can't. That's why there's all this risk, and why you need to ask for the big number up front.
Yeah.
Because you can't. And that's why I say doing due diligence. You can do all the work in the world, and when you get right down to it, that growth number and that sales number, it's a guess.
Well, it's an educated guess.
No, and that's the point we have trouble making with the first-time entrepreneurs coming to our mastermind sessions, which is, it's really a good business evaluator can look at that number and come up with much better than you think numbers for what your sales are going to be, and they'll turn out to be more like that than you would think. And what we're looking for is not just, I went to a company, and I will use a little bad language here. I went to this company in Boulder where I'm looking at the numbers, and I can't find any supporting information for the sales numbers at all. And it's just looking like they're totally made up, and they were made up so that they got the value to get the stock value to sell the price. So I'm sitting there talking to the guy, and I'm evaluating him at the same time, and I come to my evaluation comes down to, he made these numbers up, he has no idea what they're doing. So I said to him, I didn't quite put it that way to him, I said, where did you get these numbers? Did you grab them out of your ass? And he gave me the look, and then he said, yes. Well, you don't want to do that ever. No, you need to have some basis in fact. So when I say about my instrument that I'm looking to put on oil wells, gas wells, for looking at the water coming out of the ground, there's 40,000 new wells drilled a year. There's 1.1 million wells in the ground. The instrument's going to cost this. The well needs to be produced. I can come up with a good set of numbers with the one major risk factor, which is, will anybody really buy it or not? And yeah, everybody's gonna take a giant leap on that. If they buy it, the numbers are all there, everybody's gonna be happy, more than happy. We're gonna get 30x. If they don't buy it, well, we aren't gonna die, we're gonna be one of those companies where you get your money back plus a little bit more. We're not gonna, it's not gonna not work, it's gonna work, it's just how big a payout will it be? Now, which gets into early stage valuation when we value the company. How much risk is in all of the things you need to do to accomplish this? So there's many methods of valuation of early stage companies. I like to use the risk model. It's the hardest model to use. Most people don't use it. You have to get a line item list of all of the different risks, and then you've got to put a probability against it and you multiply them out. Well, the first thing that shows you is the stage of the company needs to be in to look for money. You need fewer risk line items before you look for money. If you've got lots of risk line items, the probability works out to near nothing. So right now, I'm told that a web startup, to get funding from any VC, needs to be at $1 million run rate in revenue to get any funding. They've got to do it with family and friends and bootstrapping to get to the point where they have $1 million in 80-something thousand a month before they'll have shown enough traction for the VCs to want to invest in them.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for today, most of the companies I'm looking at that are getting funded have a product. The product's in beta or actually being sold. They have some revenue, and those are the ones who are getting funded. If you're pre-revenue, if you're pre-product, you're not getting funded, pretty much. There's like everything here, there's exceptions to all of these. But that's pretty much where it's at.
Do you deal with no patents, or they're in process of getting a patent?
Okay, so now we come to protection. What's the other piece we're looking for? We're looking for protection. What kind of protection are we looking for? Ideally, we're looking for a granted patent. But the patent office takes so long, and lawyers take so long to write them up. And if you can get one in 5 years, it's a miracle. And you probably
and
get
somebody fights it.
Yeah, and by the time I'm done usually in getting my patents, the claims have been so watered down that who cares if I even applied in the first place? Well, I guess I haven't had one as a patent attorney. I had those white shoe firms in Boston doing it, ideally it'll be granted. Obviously, you'll want something, at least a provisional, at least something applied for. But in lots of cases, let's face it, there is no patent protection, you can't get in. And you have to look at that in your business plan. If you're doing a medical device and you don't have patent protection, we aren't talking. I mean, you don't even need to say a word.
A website,
Website, exactly, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna get a patent, typically, you're gonna have to run fast. We see a lot of those where we need the money. Why do you need the money? We need the money now because we need to be first into the marketplace. Well, if you've got to be first, you mean you've got to win the race against 20 other competitors. What's that risk look like on my risk line item of figuring in the risk? So that's why they're saying if you're a website and you've got $1 million in revenue, then okay, you've knocked out all the risk factors, and sure, you deserve investment. And of course, I see a lot of the web startups now are getting started up in no time. So it isn't taking a lot of money to get started. It may take a lot of money to scale, but not so much to get started and demo the product has traction. So that's basically the rule of thumb I'm being told is used. Again, I don't follow those deals that much. Medical devices, I am in a couple, and I do follow those, and that's because Steve Warnicki, this investor, that's his specialty, that's his niche.
Is it?
Is in.
That's what I'd heard as well.
Yeah, that's his niche, is a medical device field or drugs or
Mhm.
whatever.
Is that the Steve Warnicki from Warnicki Paper Box?
I don't know where he.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
So
Yeah, it is. I know him.
Okay.
And, you know, so that's what he does. I've gone and talked to a couple medical device startups. I talked to one guy where after long and involved and kind of torturous drawing out, it comes out that he would be infringing on somebody else's patent for the next 2 years.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's good due diligence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so that due diligence, kind of, everybody walked away right at that point, because he hadn't been upfront with us. You know, the patents
Oh, he
were.
knew.
Oh, yeah.
He knew he was.
He knew it all along, and he tried to gloss over it, not talk about it, and so that
How naive.
turned into an ethical thing.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of a CEO would this person be? And we all walked away from him, including the people that had already verbally committed about $500,000 to him.
Mhm.
When this came out, they all walked away.
How
Didn't get
naive.
this one. Yeah, you know, and you could have dealt with it just by saying, yes, I'm infringing here, and this, one of the patents was gonna be out, it was 2 patents, one was up in 6 months and one was up in 2 years. And he probably wasn't gonna be on the market in 2 years. So the only issue I had was he was gonna be doing all his research, and including operations to prove the effectiveness, to get his FDA license, infringing on a patent, and I had no idea what the legal jeopardy was of that, to
Mhm.
be infringing on the patent while you
There
go
is
forward.
an experimental use exception.
Yeah,
But then again, I mean, the fact he covered it up
yeah,
tainted it.
Yeah,
he
that's-
tainted
It's not the
himself.
scandal that kills you,
Well-
it's the cover.
Yes.
So so the point being that when we're talking about all these things, we're evaluating you in particular,
Mhm.
and how trustworthy are you gonna be with our money, and if there's the least glimmer of lack of trust, we're not there, we're out of it.
But you don't, I should say, what control do you exert once you give somebody some money? How does that work?
Okay, so now we're gonna have a board of directors. Stockholders elect the board of directors. Usually it's gonna be stated right in whatever the agreement is, that there's a board member that is going to be from the investor group,
Mhm.
in the initial investor group. And so it may be a 5-person board with 1 board member from the investor group. So the investor doesn't control the board. Now, you ideally would have an outsider who would be the 5th swing vote. Usually the second round, you're gonna end up with, you do another second round of investment, you're gonna end up with a second investor board member. And there'll be 2 people from the company, 1 independent, and 2 people from the investors or something like that, because you really kind of want a neutral board eventually. But in the early days, it's not a big deal, because it's all up to the founder, is this gonna get pulled off or not? And it's later on, when it's time to do the exit, and there's more money involved and everything else is, so you'll see, if you're really successful, your second round investor is gonna come in, and that's when the board control is gonna really start to slip away from you. And ultimately, if you go through 3 financial rounds, the board will be gone. It
Yeah.
will not be in control of the
If you're
founders.
Steve Jobs, you're gonna get fired from Apple, right?
I've known a founder who founded a company that ultimately got sold for $240 million, missed his first milestone and went into his board meeting, and he had raised a lot of money. He'd raised 100 million type money, and not when it was 2003-ish, when it wasn't very easy. And part of getting that money was he did not have board control. And as the founder, he went in and he'd missed his milestone, and he's having the board meeting, and he didn't miss it by much, and he didn't expect there was gonna be much problems. And I'm skiing with him that weekend, and yeah, the blood in the chair was mine, they fired me. It happens, yeah. So a good reason, if you're thinking about bootstrapping, I did it. It takes you a long time to get somewhere, but it works. It's your company.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, I had offers for VC money when I started my company. I didn't take it. It would have brought more professionalism to my company at an early age. We would have done better had I taken it, and had I listened to the outside board members, instead of trying to do it all myself. I won't make that mistake this time around. I will have a fully independent board with the fifth member being out of the company and not involved, not a stockholder, not, a true independent board member. And we've already started having board meetings that will to work these things through. Even before we brought stockholders in, I've got my lead investor attending the board meeting.
How important is the advisory board in your due diligence?
Personally, I don't find it to mean anything, because all it means is you've got to convince somebody to allow them you to put their name up on the website. I've heard people I've heard angel investors say it's very important to them. So I think it really depends on the individual you're talking to, if it's important to them or not. Probably also depends on the thing you're involved in. If I'm looking at a medical device, I'm probably paying more attention to who that is. If I'm looking at a piece of electronics, like an instrument, what's the advisory board there for? It's not that technical. It's a little bit different, but it's not that technical. So I find that, as I talk to the other investors, I find very different answers.
Could you give advice about how to bootstrap, like loans, small business loans, and other things?
Okay, well, you won't get any money from the bank unless you
Why
have
is
that
that?
asset, or unless you sign for it personally. So you'll sign a personal guarantee to get any money from the bank. Okay? That means that debt won't be discharged even if the company goes under. It's a personal debt. Yes, when I first borrowed money, it was personally guaranteed, because that's the only way you're gonna get it. It took me almost 20 years, and I was a $13 million in sales company before I got rid of the personal guarantee. Before the bank would give me a line of credit based on just my receivables, without a personal guarantee. And of course, when the things went bad in 2007, they immediately required a personal guarantee again. So I was back on the hook with a personal guarantee. So I had like 5 years of my existence without being on the hook with a personal guarantee. And that was only based on an asset. I could get 70% on my receivables and nothing on inventory. They weren't giving me a penny on inventory. And that's pretty much what I understand still today. I think they may be up to 80% on receivables.
At least it was an attractive rate to borrow.
No, it's prime plus 2, 7.5 points. There is an option now, you pay through the nose for it, but on receivables, you can, I didn't do it, it had a bad name. There are starting to be online factors for receivables, where you can sell your receivables, or get a loan against your receivables that is not done by the bank. I was sitting in the airport in Minnesota 5 months ago to a guy who was a VP at Wells Fargo, and of course when you say VP at a bank, well, there's 100,000 of them at Wells Fargo. So I asked where he was on the org chart. Yes, he was on the 4th level. And so he had a rather big section that was reporting to him, and I asked him, what's the rules on business lending for startup companies on receivables? And he said, don't even bother asking. You're not gonna
How
get
are
it.
we supposed to get anywhere then? We're just completely doomed? Is that what you're saying? Or you have to be completely raped for 90% of your company? Is that what's really the
But if
reality?
that's the way you're looking at it,
Well, you tell me what's different, because that's what I'm hearing. So you can't get a loan, you have to give away your company to have it be sold, you can't actually own it, you can't do anything.
Pretty much.
What about the Small Business Administration? You're talking about SBIR?
I have $2 million in
That's
free money
totally
from the
different.
government.
Are
That's
those-
research money.
Is
They're
that,
looking for specific.
what's the collateral that you had to put up?
Nothing.
Nothing?
That's a
It's a
grant.
grant.
It's a
It's a
grant.
grant.
Okay.
It's $2 billion a year in SBIR grants. I would not be doing my business today because I could not have raised the money to do it because it would have been too much risk, and I wouldn't have been far enough down the path. If I didn't get the 2 million in SBIR grants, I wouldn't be in that business today.
But how long does it take? I mean, if they need to know
I
that
took
from
9
the
months.
SB, yeah.
I took 9 months
Because-
from application to actually getting the first one.
And that's short.
Was there a lot of
It's
follow-up
fine.
after you submitted your 80-page grant request? or-
No, you know, we had a second round, but it was pretty minor. Nothing, you know, there's nitpicking and, you know, the committee hasn't done its job unless it finds something wrong. And if you answer them right away, you're a good guy, and if you delay it till the end of when they said you can delay it to, you're a bad guy, kind of thing. And I don't know that the answer really mattered all that much, as long as it came back in a hurry.
What are- So what are they looking for?
So I have innovative research, of which they give you the category of what the research has to be in.
Okay.
I did that research in that category on something that they've already funded to the tune of $4 million to develop in academic grants. So I've got the, you know, so if you look at my grant thing, there's 50 written papers in there by the people involved on this. You know, it's a legitimate research, but now instead of it being academic research at the university, it's been transferred into a small business. We started up with you know, no negligible amounts of money in the company.
So is that what they're looking for? They're looking for specifically a tech transfer from academia?
No, they're just looking for innovative research in a
Which could be privately funded.
small. It's a requirement by Congress that they have to spend this money, so they get the applications in and they rank them from top to bottom, and they just start spending money until the money that is required by statute is spent.
Huh.
So, you know, it's not done like a VC, it's done differently. And
What's the deliverable at the end? Just a big report?
A report.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go, I'm going in a couple of weeks to Washington to go meet with my program manager and attend a conference, and you get to meet all the other people that successfully won grants, and as I look around, I say, you know, there's a lot more people should try to do this, because there's some people here that shouldn't have this money. But it's hard, it's hard to apply. The hoops are very difficult.
If you develop, you know, intellectual property in the process, does the government own it? No.
No, the government has access to use the patent.
Yeah,
If you don't provide the, whatever it is, but they never use the patent. I mean, it's.
They can get a use right.
Yeah.
But you own it.
Yeah.
For like all of the uses, so it depends on the deal, but it can be a very, very good deal.
You can't use the government money to pay your patent lawyer. You have to come up with your own investment capital to do that, but.
How much does it cost to get a patent these days?
Depends on the technology. I'd say 5,000 to 20,000, depending on the complexity.
Okay.
That'd be a utility filing.
Okay.
So yeah, so to go back, this is not an easy road to go down, to find the money to do this. You need to have your ducks in a row. The biggest thing, the most important thing I know to tell anybody that I talk to is you need to be going to the local investor meetings to meet the investors. You need to, there's an hour ahead of time at the RVC meetings for a meet and greet, and everybody stays around later. And I've even gone to the point of suggesting that we should be putting on our name cards whether we're there as an entrepreneur or an investor or a service provider. But so far, nobody likes that idea, so I can't get it
They like
through.
being incognito.
Yeah, but you kinda can tell by looking around, and then you meet a few investors, and then you ask them, who's the other investors in the room, and you go and talk to them, and you get a feeling for what they're interested in, and what kind of a deal they'll go for, and how far you need to be down in the company stages for it to be realistic. But, you know, it's a daunting thing. We see 1,000 people, groups, apply to pitch at RVC, of which there's a meeting in the spring where 20 pitch, there's a meeting in the fall where 12 pitch, and there's 4 pitching per month after that. So there's 70 pitches made in the year. So that 1,000 gets whittled down to 70. Of the 70 that pitch, 10 are getting fully funded. And it's a daunting task to go get this money. It's a big help. I mean, I've done this before. I know how hard it is to bootstrap and what you need to do to present to the inventor. So the other thing is to get somebody on your team, if you can, who's done it before. But most of the teams we see, that's not the case. Because there just aren't enough people who have done it before, or if they have, they're so tired. They gotta be nutty to do it a second time.
Are there qualifications for the investors to be a part of this group? Because
Yes.
who's policing the police?
Yes, you have to be an accredited investor per the Securities and Exchange Commissions, which says you have $1 million investable, or you've had $200,000 in combined income for the last 3 years, each of the last 3 years, or I can't remember the exact number. If you're less than that, now there isn't change coming, and the SEC is fighting it. They don't want to do it. But they're trying to get, and the Congress has passed a law that allows crowdsourced funding.
For
where you-
equity.
For equity, where you don't have to be an accredited investor. Anybody can invest. There are limits as to how much you can invest based on your income. But the SEC has been pretty slow in getting the rules out, and the SEC really doesn't want to do it because they're very afraid that there'll be too much fraud.
Absolutely.
And I think they're probably right.
I think they are right too.
Yeah.
I have presented on behalf of a company I was a partner with
Mhm.
to the RVC
Mhm.
Capital Conference.
Yeah.
And went through
Pitch camp.
pitch camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who did you have for a
I'm
pitch
very
coach?
familiar. Frank was, no.
Frank,
Frank was, yeah, well,
yeah,
Frank
okay,
was one of
okay,
them.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a daunting road. It's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do.
So do you find that your chance of success is better if you go through one of these boot camps like Techstars or RVC or? I mean, does that
Techstars
help?
is a whole different deal, and Techstars gets, what, 1,000 applicants for 5 people accepted or something like that. And I'm not sure how good their success has been. I haven't really paid that much attention to Techstars. I hear it all the time, but
70% have been funded
yeah.
in
They,
5 years.
they've taken the companies to the total control thing, right? I mean,
I don't know enough about Techstars to comment intelligently.
It's just an example, I'm not really that familiar with their process either, but I mean, do you find the pitches are better? If you're coming out of that.
Is it
incubator
worth
type?
doing pitch camp, basically?
Exactly.
Well, you have to do it to no, most of the people that come into pitch, when they go to pitch camp, have hopeless pitches. By the time they come out of pitch
A little
camp,
different.
they're only
Yeah.
bad. Really good ones are far and few between. They do happen. The other thing, talking about momentum, the big thing is to have a lead investor, not only have your due diligence package in place, but have a lead investor in place. Because what happens when you go to RVC and you pitch, you pitch on a Tuesday, say if it's the monthly meeting. On the following Thursday, we have a meeting in Denver of the investors to decide who's interested. If you're dependent, and you are, of getting a lead investor out of that group of investors, you might have a really good pitch with a really good product, and just there's no lead investor willing to do the work to present you better to the investors. Then the same thing will be done in Boulder, and again, we'll ask, and I get drafted to be initial lead investor due diligence for some of these companies, because there just isn't enough people to do the work. So if you have a lead investor to go do the work ahead of time, you're in much better shape. And that's why I have already got my lead investor lined up, because it's although I know all the investors now, because I.
Are you just saying lead investors within the Rocky Venture?
My lead investor is not.
Okay, so.
He's a doctor in Wyoming.
So it really doesn't matter, and does that
No.
person have to be
It's
an
just,
accredited?
you need the point of contact to be between investors and the company.
Mhm.
And we try to have a single point of contact rather than having all of the investors doing it individually is hopeless.
Mhm.
So it's a single point of contact, so he fields all the questions and is the honest broker between the investors and the company.
Now, does that lead investor have to be accredited? Is that
Yeah,
a?
yeah, basically, he doesn't have to be, but he couldn't invest, he would just be the lead. And we need a new word for him.
Consultant.
Lead
Yeah.
unaccredited?
Yeah, no, just the lead, I don't know what to call him.
Investment
We'll make him-
manager or something.
Yeah, we'll give him a name if that person ever shows up.
Mhm.
We'll figure out. It's not a problem. The lead investor is just basically a title. It doesn't have anything to do with the amount of money, and they may not invest any money.
Hmm.
They're just the lead on the negotiation of the term sheet and all that other stuff back and forth.
Seems
So
like
that's
it'd
not
be a-
necessarily your transactional counsel?
No, because again, if we're gonna hire counsel at the early stage, we're looking at there's all the fees involved, and
Mhm.
we may not come to a deal and all that stuff. We don't do that.
Mhm.
Seems like you'd want your lead investor to have some skin in the game.
Absolutely, and it sure helps.
He's taking point on all that.
It sure helps, and it helps if it's the right lead investor who everybody knows, because then it's easier to make something happen.
Would you say most angel deals are a group of, say, 2, 3 angels with a lead investor?
Oh, no, it's a group of 10 to 30 angels to get, you're looking for $750,000, and one guy's
Okay.
putting in 100, and the rest are putting in 25, you need a lot of people.
As opposed to like a single angel investor, unless it was a smaller amount.
There are I've seen deals completely taken by a single angel investor. 750, here's a check. It varies all over. You kind of can't, you can't plan that you're just gonna pitch to RVC, you've gotta pitch to lots of places.
Yeah, the tour.
Yeah, you gotta make the tour. I talked to one of the companies that I invested in, had made 50 different pitches, formal pitches, before they got funded.
All over the country.
Yep. And there are groups everywhere, yeah.
Why don't leading entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and Bernie Marcus, the ones that have really made it big, form a foundation for people that are trying to get where they have gotten? They know how hard it was. Why isn't there some they give millions and billions of dollars for other causes?
Call it, ask them.
Why don't they relate to the small entrepreneur
Well,
that's
for
trying to get?
one reason, they got rich for a reason, okay? And you think they wanna share that with somebody else? No.
Yeah.
Well, they're
But the foundations,
they're-
a lot of these foundations are pretty much involved, and usually you get some kind of kickback, some kind of something, like world something, they get, a lot of notoriety because of it, and that's why they do that stuff.
Plus huge write-offs.
Yes.
It's an excellent idea.
Causes, but, I think that's what's needed out there.
I completely agree.
We through this group, through the RVC, there's a lot of places doing education to try to help you get up to speed. I've gone to all of the RVC classes. They were all fairly reasonable. I learned something in all of them.
What's the cost to attend? Is it
They're 150, something like that. a
per class?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they do have some volunteer opportunities.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you recommend any books?
I recommend
I like
any
to read books on this kind of stuff.
I'll send you my syllabus. Give me
Okay.
a card.
Okay.
I like Art of the Start.
I have Engineering Your Startup is the book I use as my
Yeah.
textbook, but,
Okay.
Can we come and audit your class?
Sure. I don't think that you would like that too much, but sure. You just, you make sure it's a Wednesday. It's 6 to 8 at Wednesday at DU room 207. But
I'll matriculate.
But be prepared, because Wednesday night is when I take the students out to the Pioneer, the bar across the street.
Nice.
I entrepreneurism is a social sport. You've got to talk to people endlessly. I have a bunch of engineers that aren't really used to doing that. I take them out and we talk about stuff they would never normally talk about. And it's great. That's how I give back, but I'm not Bill Gates, so I can't give back with his level of money. I hope I didn't turn everybody off by how hard it is, but it's hard.
It is hard.
As
I
a-
can admit that.
As a product development consultant the past 20 years, I have never sugar-coated anything.
Well, I asked yesterday I asked the entrepreneurs in our funding mastermind meeting at the RVC how I should present, because I'm known for being pretty blunt. And everyone in there said, don't change a thing, stay just the way
Right.
you are, because I was having kind of a crisis of confidence with
Yeah.
this company I'd gone to visit who don't have a chance. And I didn't tell them that, and it was the first time I haven't done.
Really?
You know, and I was feeling sorry for them. And besides, they're going to be out of money in June, so they'll know. It's not like I was going to do anything about it, because don't underestimate how long it's going to take you to close a deal. Even as you find the investors, you got all the legal work to go through. You got everything else. It's easily 90 to 120 days to get through everything.
Yeah, when I get referrals to physicians predominantly who've never even entered this foray, I love to ask the two questions: how much they think it's going to cost, and how long it's going to take. And that's where the basis of, let me tell you how difficult what you're doing is actually going to be.
Well,
I mean, not just the R&D, but
even if
everything.
it's a simple FDA device cert, I
Yep.
mean, you've just
Oh.
hammered yourself there. 'Cause
Yep.
That's
There's nothing
a
simple
big
about an
deal.
FDA.
No.
And nothing cheap about it either.
Mm-mm.
One of the points I'd like to make, just from what's happened to me in my ventures in entrepreneurship, which has been numerous and somewhat successful sometimes, is I started out making a company as if it were my personal sculpture, as if it were my thing, and it was always going to be my thing. And later on, when I got more understanding of what happens, I started to create a company based on implementing an idea, and I didn't really know if the idea would work or not. And so I had the steps, in the business plan that was, well, I'll do this and I'll take it to the market this way and see if I sell anything. If I sell some, well, then I'll put in some more of my own money. And if I sell some more, then I'll, and it wasn't me. I was no longer emotionally connected to this thing. It wasn't my sculpture. It was just an idea that I was trying to nurture in the marketplace. And that's the kind of thing, if I have an idea that I've gotten going in the marketplace, it sort of goes, then's when I can find an investor like you and be willing to give up some of the control and say, yeah, I'll let this thing go in 5 years, because it's kind of like a child. You can only have your child so long, and they grow up. You gotta let them go. And so that's a big difference that happened to me over the years, is not having that emotional attachment that this is my company.
I had the emotional attachment right up till the end. And I sold it because I had to, not because I wanted to. And I watched another company take it and multiply the sales so many times, it was astonishing. How much better would I have done if I'd had a strategic partner like that earlier? And that's what the investor brings you, is that kind of a strategic partner to help you grow the thing faster and allow you that ability to step back. It's not really your life and death issue today, and like the day I took my inventory because I knew something was wrong, and I realized at the end of the day there was $1 million in inventory missing. Now that night was a very personal night between me and the gin bottle. Yeah.
Plus, also another thing on top of that, what you just said, Bill, is someone who starts a company, what is their passion? If you get a company that's worth 10, 20, $100 million, are you really still doing what you are passionate about? Because running a company isn't going to be something I want to do.
Very different.
I
Much
wanna
very different.
do what I'm passionate
Mhm.
about and let somebody else run that, even if it means I own a good chunk of that, but I'm down here in the totem pole of the total business,
By-
but I'm doing what I enjoy doing.
By the time you're a $10 million company,
Yeah.
running the company is,
Yes.
is an incredible
You lose your hair.
thing.
Yeah.
I peaked at 125 employees, and the Pampers and the baby wipes were never far away.
So it's not necessarily a
Totally
bad thing
different
to
skills.
sell the company. May not mean that you're not working for the company.
No,
It just
doesn't mean
means
that
that
at
you
all.
don't control it anymore. Maybe they could
You
fire
may
you
get a
too.
management extension.
But you got to be doing it. If you're
Right.
passionate about what you do, you're going to be good at it, and they're going to want to keep you anyway.
Mhm.
And most entrepreneurs or inventors are mavericks,
Yep.
okay? And what it takes to be a maverick is great for launching something. But once you have to start working as a team, hiring employees, you've got a whole new set of skills you're gonna have to learn that you have no clue.
Because they're not like you.
No, they are not like you.
Your first employee's not
And the
gonna
only
be
way
like
you're gonna make it is if they're not like you.
you.
It's a long, strange path to go
Mhm.
down.
It
Yeah.
is.
You'll learn more about yourself than you ever knew.
I was just gonna say that, yes. By your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly.
They come
exactly.
flashing.
Exactly. So have I?
Oh, excellent. Yeah,
Excellent
yeah,
information.
we
Thank you.
wiped
And
our
thank,
break.
and thank you for being upfront and straight, because that's what people need to hear, rather than sugarcoat it.
Yeah, well, you know, when I started, I knew nothing. I pulled it off. I grew a ton. And literally, I started with 2 quarters in my pocket. And, you know, it took a long time. I was 7 years getting to something reasonable. I could have
What do you
gone a
call
lot
reasonable?
faster.
What do you call reasonable?
$1 million in sales.
Okay.
Took 7 years to get there, you know?
Did you have a patent on that? So, I mean, even
No,
though you
I-
sold the company, were you not getting revenue still from?
No, we were a 13 million sales company when I sold it. The stuff was at various ages. You know, it just, when you have to make a sale in a forced circumstance, you're never gonna get a great exit.
But I mean, if you had a patent, don't you have ongoing royalties?
No, you sell, the patent's an asset of the company.
That's right. You've assigned
So
the
you can't
ownership.
separate.
So I've got a patent application in today that the rights already belong to femtoscale on for this, and that's where the rights end up. The investors are gonna make sure that they go to the company.
That's true of a lot of major corporations, the development team, it's not their personal patent.
No, and
You're signing a contract saying that,
You know, you're lucky if you get the plaque, and after you got about 6
Exactly.
plaques, who needs another
Exactly.
one?
Right.
Yeah.
But that IP increases the value of the company, which
Yes.
increases your net.
The IP, you know, for me, it's a mixed bag. At exit to a public company is when that IP is really valuable. Early on, it's to the investor that it's really valuable. To the investor, he is very much more likely to invest with the patent than without it. But it's in the actual operation of the company.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean so much. It's to the investors that it means something.
Isn't there a downside to patents in that you're advertising your technical solution to this problem? The patents, isn't that in public view, the patent
Yeah,
itself?
and
So-
you can do trade secrets, and you
So
can
if somebody
trade
wanted to,
secrets.
they could just take your patent, copy it, and start selling the hell out of it, and it's up to you to go and sue him,
Well,
right?
you've got the claims, but typically the product that's patented is in the public domain anyway. So if you don't have the patent, it can be reverse engineered and
Right.
replicated.
Right.
It
I guess-
depends on the product and the
There's-
technology.
Well, sometimes it seems like.
Company I visited up in Boulder that has a patent on their product, which is being infringed on by a major company. And they've gone and been able to find a lawyer who will litigate it on a contingency fee. So that's how.
Really?
Santangelo?
I don't know who they're with,
Oh,
but
he's good.
yeah, it's some California lawyer. we
Oh,
found.
okay.
It seems like there's another strategy to say, well, maybe I don't want to go for a patent. I just want to get to the market really fast, really big, and get so far ahead of the competition
No, I
Is
teach
that-
to
is that a
run-
reasonable
I
approach?
teach run fast.
Okay.
But the patents definitely will make your exit far more enjoyable.
I see.
It's
Okay.
just, you
Would this-
get it if you can, but if you can't, that doesn't mean you can't have a successful company.
Right, right, okay.
But wouldn't you also advocate, make sure you're doing your prior art search to make sure you're not
Oh,
infringing
you
somebody?
need to have freedom
Right.
to operate, and you need to have your lawyer sign
Mhm.
off on your freedom to operate, because your triple damages go down to single
That's
damages.
right, yeah.
So you need that freedom to operate certificate.
Would this be an accurate or inaccurate perspective from your point, in terms of the company's exit strategy, especially when they have a patent? Part of the reason you want to see a company exit within 7 years is because of the value that will take to the next company that acquires them.
It's strategic, not a financial.
Right,
matter.
well, where they still have X number of years left on their intellectual property, so that will make
That's part of what they're paying for.
Yeah.
Is they know that they've got and you've proven that you have a workable, protection
Mhm.
for you, in your industry. And it's
Mhm.
especially important for, like I said, medical
Oh, yeah.
devices. So it is a big part of your exit. It's a big part of finding your investors. It's
Mhm.
not so big a part of running your business.
No, I agree with that. What time are we meeting up at the Pioneer?
Okay, we're at just about 8:30,
Yeah.
so.
It's funny, you